Hello, and welcome to Distraction. I'm your host, Dr. Ned Hallowell, and thank you for joining me today for this special episode, brought to you by our fantastic sponsor, Landmark College in Putney, Vermont. It is the place to go for students who learn differently. I love that college. They gave me an honorary degree many years ago. That's not why I love it, but I'm grateful to them for that. The reason I love it is they're so good at what they do. Today, I'm very happy, as I always am, to welcome back to the podcast the guest we've had on more than any other single guest, Jessica McCabe from HowtoADHD. I'm sure most of you know her from her YouTube podcasts, from her YouTube presentations, and many other on the social media networks. Whenever Jessica comes on, I just ask her, please, Jessica, talk. And because I don't want to lead her in any one direction, because she has so many wonderful directions in which to go. So, Miss Jessica McCabe, would you please lead it off and tell us what's on your mind today?
I will. So today, my latest obsession right now is dogs and how much dogs can be helpful for ADHD. And not just because they give you an excuse for why you didn't turn in your homework. Besides eating your homework, there are a lot of things that dogs can do to support us. And a lot of people kind of find that naturally dogs just are very loving and welcoming and comforting and soothing and can help with things like rejection sensitivity, which we tend to struggle with quite a bit. They can give us a sense of purpose and pride when we are able to take care of something outside of ourselves and do a good job with it. And those of us that struggle with self-esteem issues, that can be a really wonderful and important thing. And they can also help us with routines. Dogs are very routine oriented. They have this great internal clock, and those of us who don't have the best internal clock can benefit from that. There are times when I have no idea what time it is, but my dog knows what time it is. She knows it's time for her walk, or she knows it's time to play, or she knows that it's time to eat. And so those markers help me stay grounded in time reality, basically, as opposed to everything just feeling really kind of like everything all blends together. It gives me a sense of structure to my day. So even if I don't plan my day, there is still a sense of structure to it. And that's incredibly helpful for me. She is the reason why I go to bed on time and I get out of bed in the morning, to be honest. And dogs can be so helpful for people with ADHD and other mental health conditions as well, that there is something called an emotional support animal. It doesn't have to be a dog. A lot of times it is, but people can also have emotional support cats, emotional support turtles, whatever it is that gives you that sense of love and belonging and emotional support that helps you with your emotions. And if you have one of these mental health conditions and you talk to your doctor, they can write a letter for you saying you have an emotional support animal that helps you with your mental health condition. And that gives you certain rights and privileges, including if you're going to college, you can actually have them allow your dog or cat in your dorm. It's protected under the Fair Housing Act. They have to make reasonable accommodations for you. If you have a disability and this animal is supportive to your mental health, they can make those accommodations. And this is something I really would have loved to know when I went to school, that if I go to a dorm, I can bring my dog with me because she is so incredibly important and helpful. That said, you do have to leave them in the dorm. You can't bring a service dog, you can't bring an emotional support animal with you just anywhere. They're allowed to live with you and they are allowed to fly on planes. Other than that, they're really only allowed places where any pet would be allowed. So if you need an extra level of support, you can actually either get or train yourself something called a psychiatric service dog. This is specific to dogs. You can't really have a psychiatric service rabbit because they have to go through a lot of training to be a psychiatric service dog. They have to behave in public and be able to perform whatever tasks you need to support you with your disability or with your ADHD, with whatever. They need to be able to perform those tasks, even if there's a lot of distractions around, and they need to do it without distracting other people or other service dogs. So it's a lot more training, but really the difference between an emotional support animal and a psychiatric service dog, besides that incredibly extensive training, is an emotional support animal is supportive just by doing the things that animal naturally does for you. A psychiatric service dog is when they are specifically trained to do particular tasks to support you, and they can do those tasks reliably. So an example is my dog, I have trained to get me my medication. I often forget to take my medication for my restless leg syndrome at night. And if I don't take it, I don't sleep. And if I take it right when I realize I'm not going to be able to sleep, it's still too late. I'm still going to have a rough night of sleep. And so I've trained her to, as soon as around 10 o'clock at night, as soon as I go to sit down on the couch and relax, or if I'm not on the couch yet, like she will actually bring them to me wherever I am in the house. She'll go through my purse. She'll go to wherever, she'll look around to see where I left my meds. She'll find them and she will bring them to me so that I remember to take them. She also will interrupt me if I'm hyper-focusing. That's something we're training her to do. She did that really well last night. I'd been working on a talk for like hours and hours, and I'd forgotten to eat. I'd forgotten that time existed at all. And she just climbed up onto me, like just climbed on me to be like, hey mom, like we need to take a break. And it was wonderful. I also teach her to interrupt me when I'm emotionally dysregulated. I notice that if I'm really, really overwhelmed, I kind of wave my hands in front of me, like I'm like, no more. And if she sees me doing that, now she'll actually jump on me. She'll jump onto my legs to tell me like, hey, you need to take a break from this conversation. This is a lot for you right now. And those things have been so incredibly helpful for me that I really encourage people, if you have a dog, even if you don't plan on taking them to, restaurants and grocery stores and all the places that a service dog is allowed to go, train them to do some of the things that you need them to do to support you, because they can do things to support you at home. Like maybe you're fine. You don't need that extra level of support if you're out and about, or if you go on a trip or something, you're fine with leaving your dog at home. But at home, you want them to wake you up in the morning. You can train them to, if you're ignoring your alarms, to start licking your face or to sit on you or whatever it is that you need them to do. And this can be such a great way for you and your dog to bond and for you to get a little extra support with your ADHD.
That's just amazing. And some of them can even detect, like people with seizure disorder, when they're going to have a seizure. They can sense
so this is a really interesting thing. So I'm working with a trainer right now, and if you teach them what the external markers are of when you're in that situation, they can start to associate other things. So if they can sense that your breathing is more shallow and that your heart rate is increasing if you're about to have an anxiety attack or a panic attack, then if you teach them what your body naturally does, physically, that they can see, and they learn to respond to those cues, they also start picking up the other cues. So eventually the idea is that even if I'm not shaking my hands, even if I'm not waving my hands in front of me when I'm overwhelmed, she'll still know that I'm overwhelmed because my heart rate is up, my breathing is faster, and she'll still be able to perform that. And so, service dogs can do all kinds of cool things. They can detect spikes in cortisol. They can detect if your blood sugar is low and you need to eat. It's really interesting and fascinating. And if we can get that level of support, there's absolutely no reason not to, because it's great for the dog. It's great for your bond with your dog. They love to work. They love to feel useful. I mean, think of us, like if we have no purpose and we're just sitting around all day, we don't feel as good as if we have things that we know make us useful, if we can be helpful to other people. And it's the same way with dogs. Like they love it. My dog looks so freaking proud of herself and so thrilled every time she gets it right. And she brings me my medicine when it's time to take my meds. It gives her a sense of purpose, and working with her, training her has made the bond that we already had when she was an emotional support animal even stronger.
How did you train her to do these things?
So I actually started working with a trainer, and I'm doing a video series about this on my channel right now. This trainer reached out to me, and they were really impressive. They had gone to school for it. They were an animal behaviorist and had also trained their own psychiatric service animals, and had been a trainer for a nonprofit. So that's another way you can go if you don't want to do the training yourself. You can go through a nonprofit that trains psychiatric service dogs for different conditions. Some of the most common conditions that they get trained for are like autism and PTSD. ADHD is a little harder to find, but that's why I think one of the reasons why I'm training Chloe myself. So I found the trainer because they reached out to me through the channel. And I'll be, when I start doing those videos again, I'll be linking to them. But also you can look up online, if you just look up tasks that service dogs can do, psychiatric service dogs, a good way to start that Chris, my trainer, suggests is figure out what you struggle with that you might need help with, what the external markers of those things are, like what do you do physically that the dog might be able to respond to know when it's time to help, what level of help do you need there? Like, is this really important? Is this going to take a lot? Like, I need a lot of help. If I'm emotionally dysregulated, I'm not going to stop talking or yelling because I'm past that point of no return. I need a lot of interruption. I need a lot of help from my dog. And then what can she do that would actually help? So you write those things down, and then you can look up videos online too, just on YouTube, like how to get your dog to interrupt you if you're doing something that you don't want to do. Skin picking is another really big one. If you tend to struggle with skin picking, or, you pull out hair, which happens a lot, with ADHD, just body focused repetitive behaviors. If you're doing those things, you can train your dog to interrupt you to do those. And you can look up videos online. That's amazing.
I just took a course Friday and Saturday put on by Mass General and Harvard Medical School on anxiety disorders. And one of the syndromes they talked about, well, two of them were skin picking and trichotillomania, hair pulling, which are very difficult to treat. And they didn't mention dogs, but I'm so glad to get this. So if you can train the dogs to interrupt you when you're pulling out your hair or picking at your skin, and these are, for those of you who don't have these problems, they may sound weird and not too much to worry about. They're very much to worry about. The skin picking can lead to bleeding, sores, infection, and the trichotillomania, the pulling out your hair, can be just incredibly embarrassing and leave you looking really strange and really harming yourself. So they're to be taken seriously. And the idea of a dog, it just rings so true. That's a wonderful thing that they can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talk all the time about how we have these great Ferrari engine brains, but bicycle brakes. Yeah. Dogs can help us put on the brakes. They can interrupt us. And it's a wonderful thing.
And you've had your dog how long?
I've had my dog since she was a puppy. I adopted her at 9 weeks old, and that was 2.5 years ago that I got her. And I trained her. I socialized her a lot because I knew that I wanted her to be able to be good in public. I was thinking that I would make her a therapy dog, actually, like if I brought her to events that other people could benefit from her being soothing to them. And it wasn't until I went through my divorce and I went through a lot of loss. I went through a lot and realized I actually need her to support me. And that's when I decided to start training her as a psychiatric service dog. But I just made that decision a couple months ago. We're just beginning this journey, but it's already paid off. It's already, she's already learned to help me with things that I didn't know she was even capable of helping me with. And it's been a really cool thing. Cause it's just not something that gets talked about a lot, which is why I wanted to bring it up. You can train your dog to support your ADHD. And if you are away at college and you have a psychiatric service dog, and again, it's a lot of training to get them to the point where they're not going to be interruptive to other people, where they're not going to distract, they're not going to react to other service dogs. So it's a commitment. It's a serious commitment. But if you do get a psychiatric service dog or train your own psychiatric service dog, they can come with you to class. They can come with you anywhere that you are allowed to go.
I have a friend who's writing an entire book about how her dog basically saved her life from addiction. And over the course of a year, succeeded. And it's such a sweet and touching story. Dogs, I mean, people listening to the podcast know my feelings about dogs. I always say it's no accident that God spelled backwards is dog,
Yeah, just naturally, even without the training, they are so beneficial in so many ways.
Absolutely. Okay, well, as always, Jessica, you are just full of wonderful information and presentation, but we've come to the end of our episode for today. If you want to support Jessica's work, and she is so worth supporting, just go to Patreon, patreon.com/HowtoADHD. That's Patreon, patreon.com/HowtoADHD. And Patreon, for those of you who don't know, I didn't know, is a really wonderful system whereby you can help support financially the work of people who need support, like Jessica. She doesn't make a ton of money doing this stuff, so she relies on that. So if you like her as much as I do, go to Patreon, patreon.com/HowtoADHD.com. And you can find out more about Jessica, of course, at that website, HowtoADHD.com. It's just an amazing website. And you also, if you want to learn more about our wonderful sponsor, Landmark College, go to lcdistraction.org. That's lcdistraction.org. Landmark College in Putney, Vermont, is the college of choice for students who learn differently, like me. Please continue to reach out to us with your questions, comments, and show ideas. Write an email or record a voice memo on your phone and send it to connect@distractionpodcast.com. That's connect@distractionpodcast.com. And check out my videos on TikTok. I've just started doing this. They're about 60 seconds apiece on different topics related to ADHD. My handle there is @Dr. Hallowell, @Dr. Hallowell. Over the course of the past 1 month, I've had 3.5 million views. It could knock me over with a feather. Distraction is created by Sounds Great Media. Our producer is the wonderful Sarah Guertin, and our recording engineer and editor is the estimable and talented Scott Persson. That's Persson with 2 S's.